Ladies, I want to talk to you about something that most people never say out loud, something that's happening in the mind of a man before he even makes his move. When a man is thinking about you sexually, there's a subtle shift in his behavior. You're a pattern that most women completely miss. When a man suddenly increases his attention toward you, it can feel flattering, exciting, and even validating. But there's something important that often gets overlooked. The asterisk type asterisk of attention he's giving. When a man is thinking about you sexually, one of the first signs is a noticeable spike in attention. But that attention is surface level. It feels intense, but it's missing emotional depth. You might notice he starts texting more frequently, complimenting you more often, or suddenly showing up where he knows you'll be. It feels like he's making an effort, but here's the key. While his attention increases, the emotional quality of your interactions stays the same or becomes more shallow. You can be on the receiving end of constant messages, playful banter, even long late night conversations, and still not feel truly seen. That's because when his motive is purely physical, he's not focused on getting to know you at your core. He's not curious about your beliefs, your values, your past, or your future. He's more interested in the version of you that fits the fantasy in his mind, and that version often has little to do with who you actually are. His attention is real, but the intention behind it is where the truth lies. This is where so many women miss the sign, because attention, especially in the early stages of a connection, can easily be mistaken for investment. And it's easy to fall into the trap of believing that if someone is giving you more time, they must be developing feelings. But there's a difference between someone who's interested in you and someone who's interested in what you can give them . When the attention is laced with urgency, when it feels like it's rushing the connection, when there's pressure, subtle or overt, to move things forward physically, that's when you need to pause. A man who is emotionally invested builds slowly. His attention grows consistently, not explosively. He's not just present when it's convenient or when the moment is intimate. He shows up with curiosity, empathy, and care even when there's nothing in it for him. That's what makes emotional depth feel so different from surface-level intensity. You feel seen beyond the physical. Your conversations aren't just flirtatious. They're layered, honest, and vulnerable. He remembers things you say, follows up on small details, and genuinely seeks out time with you in meaningful ways. But when a man's attention seems to arrive out of nowhere and escalates quickly, without a foundation of emotional connection, that's when it's often rooted in sexual attraction rather than genuine interest. You'll feel it in the way he talks about you, the kind of compliments he gives, and how much space he leaves for your emotional world. The danger lies in how convincing surface-level attention can be. It mirrors real interest just enough to create hope, but not enough to create something lasting. When a man begins thinking about you sexually, one of the most noticeable shifts is in the way he compliments you. Compliments are a beautiful part of connection, but the nature of those compliments tells you everything about his intentions. In the early stages of attraction, men may genuinely admire your intelligence, your energy, your wit, or your ambition. But when the focus begins to narrow in on your physicality, your body, your looks, the way you dress, it often signals that his mind has started moving toward a sexual space. What begins as a balanced mix of appreciation for who you are can slowly become more centered on how you look. He might start making comments about your figure, the way your jeans fit, or how sexy you looked in that photo you posted. And while there's nothing wrong with receiving or enjoying these types of compliments, it's important to pay attention when they become the only asterisk compliments you hear. When a man consistently comments on your appearance, but no longer praises your character, your thoughts, or your emotional presence, he's revealing where his focus truly lies. It's even more telling when these compliments come at specific times late at night, after you post a certain picture, or when the conversation is already leaning toward flirtation. That timing isn't accidental. It's often aligned with moments when he's mentally or emotionally primed to think sexually, and that energy seeps into the way he interacts with you. You might start to feel more like an object of desire than a person he's genuinely trying to understand and connect with. He notices the surface, but he doesn't inquire deeper. He's quick to comment on your lips, your eyes, your curves, but he doesn't ask how your day went, what's been on your mind, or what you're struggling with right now. This kind of praise can feel good at first. It boosts confidence and can even feel like validation. But over time, it can create a sense of being reduced to just your appearance. You begin to notice that he lights up when you post a photo, but stays quiet when you share something meaningful. He responds to a flirty comment, but ignores a vulnerable one. His compliments are strategic. They serve a purpose, and that purpose often leads back to one thing: sex. A man who is truly interested in you will compliment your depth. He will notice the way you treat people, the insights you offer, the way your mind works in a conversation. He'll see you as a whole person, not just someone who visually excites him. When you see this shift in the pattern of his praise, take a moment to observe whether the emotional component of the connection is growing at the same pace. If not, it's likely that his compliments are not about connection, they are about desire. And desire, on its own, does not equal genuine interest. When a man is thinking about you sexually, there's often a noticeable change in the way he positions himself physically around you. He starts to lean in more, stand or sit closer, and may even look for opportunities to initiate subtle touches on your arm, your back, or through playful nudges. His body language begins to communicate something his words might not yet reveal. It's an unspoken shift where proximity becomes a silent message of desire. But while the physical closeness increases, what often doesn't accompany it is emotional openness. This creates a clear imbalance. His body is available, but his heart remains guarded. You might find yourself in moments where he's highly affectionate, even flirtatiously intense, yet still evasive when deeper topics arise. He may engage in teasing, light-hearted conversation, and extended eye contact, all of which suggest intimacy. But when you try to pivot into vulnerability or emotional connection, he redirects or becomes vague. This mismatch between physical availability and emotional distance is one of the clearest indicators that his thoughts about you are primarily sexual. He's drawn to the feeling of closeness, but not necessarily to the depth of emotional engagement. This dynamic can be confusing because it mimics real chemistry. It feels exciting to be near someone who's clearly attracted to you, someone whose energy feels warm, present, and magnetizing. But if that energy doesn't translate into genuine emotional curiosity, if he doesn't make an effort to understand your inner world, ask meaningful questions, or reveal parts of his own emotional landscape, it's a sign that his presence is more about physical gratification than emotional connection. He's connecting through touch, not through trust. It's also common for this physical closeness to be accompanied by mixed signals. He might be very affectionate one day and withdrawn the next. He may initiate cuddling, hold your hand, or find excuses to be near you. but then retreat when things start feeling emotionally significant. This push-pull behavior often reflects an internal struggle between attraction and avoidance. He wants the closeness, but without the emotional accountability that comes with it. That inconsistency can leave you wondering where you stand or whether you've done something wrong, when in reality, it's just him keeping the emotional boundary intact while crossing the physical one. What's important to notice is whether he creates space for both kinds of intimacy. Does he open up to you in quiet moments, not just flirt with you when the mood is light? Does he hold space for your feelings? Or does he only show affection when things are fun, flirty, or physical? A man who is emotionally invested will allow his physical presence to reflect his emotional availability. He won't just get close to your body. He'll make an effort to get close to your heart. But when the closeness is selective and strategic, aimed at sparking desire rather than building connection, you're likely in the presence of someone whose interest is rooted more in sexual curiosity than emotional sincerity. When a man starts thinking about you sexually, one of the most subtle yet telling signs is when he begins to control the timing of communication in a very specific way. He may not even be fully aware of what he's doing, but his behavior begins to follow a pattern that centers around his convenience and mood rather than mutual connection. You'll notice he becomes especially communicative during late hours, sending flirty texts, playful messages, or even suggestive emojis once the day winds down. But during the day, when conversations could be more intentional, thoughtful, or emotionally grounded, he often becomes distant, delayed, or entirely silent. This selective communication isn't random. It's reflective of a deeper intention. When a man's focus is sexual, he tends to engage when his mind is in that space, when he's alone, relaxed, and potentially craving some level of stimulation or excitement. That's why you hear from him most often at night, when the emotional weight of the day has passed, and the interaction can be light, flirtatious, or sensual. It gives him the ability to connect on his terms without the depth or vulnerability that comes from daytime emotionally present conversations. At first, this might come off as charming or romantic. Late night chats can feel intimate, like he's choosing to spend those quiet, personal hours with you. But over time, if those moments aren't balanced by genuine effort during the day, checking in, making plans, showing interest in your routine, it reveals a lack of emotional engagement. He's not investing in the full picture of who you are. He's only showing up when it satisfies a temporary craving or moment of desire. The consistency is missing, and with it, so is the foundation of a deeper bond. This kind of selective presence can also lead to emotional confusion. You may feel wanted in one moment and forgotten the next. He's hot and then cold, present and then unavailable. That inconsistency isn't a reflection of your worth or how interesting you are. It's a reflection of where his focus lies. A man who is emotionally invested doesn't just reach out when it's convenient or when the vibe suits him. He's consistent because he's building something real, and that requires reliability, not just spontaneity. Communication timing also reflects how much effort someone is willing to put into a connection. If a man truly sees value in you, he doesn't limit the interaction to moments that benefit him, or avoid deeper exchanges that might require more of him emotionally. He's not just messaging when he's bored or when the lights are low. He's reaching out during all hours because he wants to be part of your life, not just your late night conversations. When the timing feels too calculated, too one-sided, or too centered on flirtation without substance, It's a sign that his interest may be more about attraction than real connection. When a man is thinking about you sexually rather than emotionally, one of the most common behaviors he exhibits is avoiding conversations about the future. He may be engaging, present, and even affectionate in the moment, but as soon as the topic shifts to anything involving future plans, goals, or emotional depth, he deflects or changes the subject. This avoidance isn't always obvious. It's often wrapped in charm, humor, or vague language that seems harmless at first. But if you look closely, there's a clear pattern. He keeps things light, non-committal, and centered on the now. A man who sees you as a long-term partner wants to understand where you're headed and how you both might grow together. He asks about your vision for the future. He shares his own goals, and he starts to naturally include you in his plans, even in small ways. In contrast, a man who is primarily viewing the relationship through a sexual lens doesn't invite those conversations. He might say he's just going with the flow or taking things slow, but if that becomes a consistent excuse to avoid discussing the possibility of something deeper, it's usually a red flag. You might bring up future plans, maybe a trip you'd like to take, a goal you're working toward, or where you see yourself in a year, and notice that he either doesn't ask follow-up questions or give non-answers like, "We'll see what happens," or "I'm just living in the moment." While living in the present can be healthy, it can also be a way to avoid responsibility and emotional investment. If he truly values a future with you, he'll show curiosity about your dreams, your lifestyle preferences, and how your lives could align long term. There's also a subtle emotional detachment that comes with this avoidance. Even if he's physically affectionate or seems interested in spending time with you, there's a ceiling to how far he'll let the relationship go. He may be attentive when you're together but unresponsive when you try to talk about labels, intentions, or emotional clarity. He may give just enough attention to keep you hopeful, but never enough commitment to give you certainty. This creates a cycle where you feel like you're always waiting for him to catch up emotionally, when in reality, he may have no intention of going deeper at all. Another sign is how he talks about relationships in general. He may downplay their importance, share negative views about commitment, or reference past situations where things got too serious. These comments can be disguised as vulnerability, but they're often preemptive defenses meant to lower your expectations without explicitly saying so. He wants the benefits of closeness, without the responsibilities that come with emotional commitment. By avoiding future-oriented conversations, he keeps the connection in a safe zone for himself, one that's exciting, pleasurable, and free of the accountability that comes with deeper involvement. When a man is thinking about you sexually, one of the more subtle signs is that he begins to test boundaries. Not always in overt or aggressive ways, but in quiet, calculated steps. These tests can come in the form of playful but suggestive jokes, flirtatious comments that walk the line between charming and provocative, or slight physical gestures that push the limits of comfort just enough to gauge your response. What he's doing, often without saying it directly, is checking how far he can go and how quickly, without facing resistance. It usually starts with small things that can easily be brushed off. Maybe a compliment that focuses more on your body than your personality, or a comment about how attractive you look in a certain outfit. It might seem harmless in the beginning, even flattering, but these interactions are often designed to provoke a reaction. If you play along, laugh it off, or even reciprocate with a flirtatious remark of your own, he takes it as a green light. If you don't, he might quickly change the subject or downplay it as just a joke. using humor as a shield to protect himself from being called out. These moments are not always about the comment itself. They are about the data he collects from your reaction. He's trying to see where your limits are, how assertively you communicate them, and whether you'll enforce them consistently. This gives him a roadmap for how to interact with you moving forward. If you allow those lines to be crossed early on, even slightly, it opens the door for future behavior that continues in that same direction. Sometimes the boundary testing becomes more physical. He might initiate small touches, a hand on your lower back, a brush of your thigh during conversation, or standing just slightly too close. Again, it can be so subtle that it feels unintentional. But if you start to notice these moments repeating and gradually becoming bolder, you're witnessing a pattern. He's not building a foundation of trust or emotional intimacy. He's layering physicality into the dynamic while keeping the emotional stakes low. What makes this even more complicated is that these tests often happen in emotionally neutral or even fun contexts. You might be laughing, having a great conversation, and feeling a genuine connection. Then, almost without warning, he makes a remark or gesture that feels more intimate or provocative than the situation calls for. If you respond positively, the pattern continues. If you seem uncomfortable, he pulls back just enough to make it seem like it wasn't a big deal. The real danger is that these moments are easy to dismiss. You might tell yourself you're overthinking it, or that he didn't mean anything by it. But when you look at the progression, how quickly things move from light banter to sexual undertones, from casual touch to more intentional contact, you begin to see that it's not random. It's a slow escalation designed to test your boundaries and see how far he can take the connection physically without needing to invest emotionally.